Alright, welcome back to the World's Hardest Game tutorial series for Level 2. This will be the second video where we're going to go into making the obstacles, or the ball that's going to go around the outside that we have to avoid. And we're also going to make the yellow ball that's up here that we actually want to touch, right? When we go up here to this one, and then go back to the beginning. Something else I would just like to get out of the way before we get moving. We want our end game button to show up down here, and we want that to be here on level 2. We know we made this in one of the previous tutorials, which is going to be showing up right here. This is end game. That brings us back to the home screen. So instead of showing up just at start level 1, we'll duplicate that and make that show up at the start of level 2 as well. So we'll go ahead and have that show up right there, and that's going to bring us back to the beginning. Right now this is bringing up us here to level 2, and we're ready to move forward with making our sprite that's going to go around the outside here. So we'll duplicate, we'll duplicate here obstacle number 1, and we'll go ahead and duplicate it. It says obstacle 5. We'll actually call this level 2 obstacle. Alright, so our level 2 obstacle, we're going to want this to show up when we start level 2. It's not going to do the pattern of the ones that we did before where it oscillates back and forth, so we're going to have this get out of here. And we'll just say actually when we end level 2, this will hide, this will go away. Alright, so it starts when it shows up here, or it shows up when we start here, and then it hides when it goes away. Alright, so there it is for the start. We'll have this thing start over here, up in the corner, and it's just going to go to this corner, this corner, this corner, and back home. Let's take this one out of here because we want our new populated move to command. Make sure we're at -68 and 80, which is what we have right here. So -68 and 80 when this thing starts, it goes there. Alright, so we go here. Now we're going to go over to this corner over here. So we're going to glide over to this point, which will be 112 and 82. Now we actually want our y coordinate to be consistent here because I think when I moved it over I might have moved up a little bit. I might have moved up 2 units, but we'll keep that at 80 so it's going to move in a perfectly straight box going around. Alright, now we'll go down here to this corner. That's going to be -117 and -88. Alright, so our y coordinate is going to be the same. Let's see, let's make sure, let's look at how this is going here. Alright, cool, -88, and this is what we want it to be right here. Our x coordinate will be the same, -1 or 112, +112, and +112. Alright, now we're going to go over here to this corner. We'll bring this over. So our y coordinate -88 will keep the same, -88. And we want this to go back to the same x coordinate that we had over here, which was -68. So we'll just make that -68. And then our final glide is going to be back to the original point we had over here, -68 and 80. Let's just check that to make sure it's okay. Looks perfect. Alright, we are going to now put this inside of our forever loop, so it just keeps doing that, going all the way around. Alright, so remember from our example before, we now want to have a snake effect that makes a longer train behind this sprite that we have to dodge, so we don't lose the game or don't lose the level. Right, it's pretty easy right now if we just had that one object to get up here and back down. It's not really much of a game, so we're going to make this obstacle be a little bit longer. Alright, if we look back at our example we had before, when I say snake effect, I mean this. Right, so that leaves this little opening here between the start and the end that we have to actually dodge in and out of. Alright, so in order to make this snake effect here, what we need to do is we need to use the cloning tool, and we actually find that under control. And we're going to say create clone of myself, right? And that's going to happen forever. So we want that to happen from the beginning. So we'll say when I receive start L2, we're going to create a clone of myself, and that's what's going to make the snake effect. Right, so when level 2 starts, we have the snake effect happening here. Right, now if we don't delete these clones, and they just make a box around us that we can never get out of, so that's not really what we want, but it's closer to it. So we'll say down here, when I start as clone, we're going to want to have these things wait for a little while, and then delete. All right, we'll just use this wait 1 second, see how that goes, and then we'll delete. All right, so now we start and we delete. All right, so we're a step closer now. It's still a really small snake, so we'd be able to just easily get up in here and, you know, right back down. So we're going to try to close this gap by making this snake longer. Right? And we can play around with these numbers and make them whatever they want to be. It's going to be different for your game, whatever it looks like. And of course, you can make it be whatever you want it to be. But the difficulty of this level is kind of determined by this number, right? How close the gap is from the front of the snake to the back. So we can actually change this around to make it 3 or whatever it is. And we'll see what that duration is, right? Still probably a little big, but for right now, for coding purposes, we can leave that be and change it around when we test play this thing at the end. But overall, that is what we want. All right. For our next part now, we want to have this this obstacle trigger a loss or trigger a fail whenever I touch into it, and have it move my player back to the origin. So we're actually going to find that within the player. Right? Very similar to the way that we had everything coded for our level 1. We can actually just duplicate this and drop it right over here. We have a lot of our code already set up for us. So when I receive start level 1, which is going to make level 2. Originally for level 1 we set our fails to 0. We don't want that because we want our fails to carry over from level 1 to level 2. There were 4 different obstacles that we had to avoid in level 1. In this one, in this level 2, we only have 1 of them. So we can get rid of these other 3. And now we can just say if touching obstacle number 1, which will change to, where is it, level 2 obstacle. I'll actually just bring that down a little bit so we can see it a little better. All right, our level 2 obstacle, we want to change fails by 1. Again, right, we'll increase. Our original point that we go back to is not the same. We'll use our origin for level 2, which is 24 and -4. Alright, let's see how that goes. So every time we touch this thing, right, we're going back to the beginning, which we have here. Right? Our fails have gone away. I think we want to show that variable, which we can actually do, right now. So let's see here. We'll go back into our obstacle, and we'll make sure that for this code, we show our variable fails. Alright, some other things that are happening here. We notice with our level 2 obstacle, at end level 2, we want this thing to hide. And I believe, actually for end game, our end game sprite is not coded to broadcast end level 2. So we'll just duplicate this here and say, when this sprite is clicked, we also want to end level 2. So we'll try that again. End game, and that goes away. Beautiful. Alright, also I think for our end game, we need to rename it. Alright, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but we are making some headway now. Alright, the last thing we want to do for our level 2 is we want to have our yellow dot or a yellow ball that's up here that we need to grab in order to be able to beat this level. Right? So we will say we're going to duplicate this size object here, and we're just going to put it up in the corner, and we'll code it to disappear when our red player touches it. So we will duplicate, and we'll call this level 2 yellow ball. Right, if we're going to call this thing yellow ball, we probably need to make it yellow. Perfect. In our code, we're not going to have it do any of the stuff that our other obstacle is doing, other than show up when we receive start level 2, and hide when we receive end level 2. Where do we want this thing to go? Right there. Motion. We will do right here, what level -68 and 133. So it shows up right there, and that is what we want. All right, now when for sensing, when our player touches this object, we want it to go away. So we will say forever. If we are touching the player, let's see, touching player, then we want this to just hide. Alright, so we're in on here. We grabbed it, it's hidden, and now we got to make our way back to here where we can actually win the game. Perfect. Alright, we're going to stop that here, and we're going to finish up the rest of this level when we come back.